The automatic glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh, and cold air from the store's AC brushed against the cheeks of an elderly woman slowly walking inside. Her name was Martha. She looked small, gentle, and maybe even a little fragile, the kind of woman who reminded you of a sweet grandma who baked cookies and asked if you'd eaten yet. But today she didn't look excited or curious. She walked with hesitation, clutching a little brown fabric coin pouch in her shaky hands as she stepped deeper into the store. The place was expensive. Marble floors, golden light fixtures, shelves full of designer bags, polished perfume bottles, and velvet-boxed jewelry. People who shopped here usually wore diamonds, not coupons. And Martha? She wore an old knitted sweater that looked like it had survived a dozen winters, maybe more. Her shoes were worn down, the backs bent from years of use. And her gray hair was tied loosely in a bun that wasn't neat but wasn't messy either. Just practical. As she walked toward the scarf display, a pair of younger women noticed her. One of them nudged the other and whispered while smirking, "Why's she here? Did she walk in by mistake?" The other giggled and replied, "Maybe she's looking for the clearance corner. Except this place doesn't have one." But Martha didn't react. She didn't turn, flinch, or seem bothered. She scanned the shelves quietly, not with the eyes of someone who didn't belong, but with someone remembering something. Something old. Something familiar. Then she stopped. Her fingers reached out toward a soft, cream-colored silk scarf, embroidered with tiny hand-stitched flowers along the edges. She lifted it slowly, ran her fingers along the stitching, and smiled. A slow, emotional, nostalgic smile, like the scarf wasn't just fabric, but a memory. After a moment, she folded it with great care and made her way to the checkout counter. Behind the register stood a teenage cashier named Brianna. Fake lashes, fresh acrylic nails, gum popping every 5 seconds like an annoying timer. She scanned the scarf and said without looking up, "That'll be $189.75. Finally glancing up, her expression changed. The judgment was instant. Brianna raised an eyebrow and scoffed. Ma'am? Are you sure you're in the right store?" Martha just nodded politely. She reached into her purse, slowly opening her small coin pouch, and that sound, coins jingling, made the line behind her shift impatiently. A guy sighed loudly. Another woman muttered, "Oh, great. This is going to take forever." And just like that, the giggles started again. Brianna leaned forward, loudly exaggerating every word. "Ma'am, we accept cards and cash, not whatever this is." Martha didn't argue. She didn't get defensive. She quietly placed a small stack of quarters on the counter and began, counting the rest in her hand, lips trembling just enough to show how much she was trying to focus. Brianna leaned forward, loudly exaggerating every word. "Ma'am, we accept cards and cash, not whatever this is." Martha didn't argue. She didn't get defensive. She quietly placed a small stack of quarters on the counter and began, counting the rest in her hand, lips trembling just enough to show how much she was trying to focus. Brianna tapped her nails impatiently and rolled her eyes, dramatically, like this was the worst inconvenience of her life. Then, someone behind Martha said loudly, "On purpose. Why is she even buying something here? She can't afford groceries, let alone silk." The line chuckled. Phones lifted. Someone was already recording. Martha paused, swallowed slowly, and kept counting. But the humiliation in the room hung thick. Like everyone had already decided she didn't belong there. And just when she placed the final coin on the counter, the register suddenly beeped, glitched, then froze. And across the bright touchscreen appeared a message nobody expected. "I restricted access detected. Please wait." Everyone went silent. Brianna stared at the screen, confused. Then another alert popped up, bigger and bolder. "Owner access requested." The laughter stopped. Every phone lowered, and the entire store turned toward Martha. But she didn't look shocked. She didn't look confused. She just smiled. A tiny knowing smile, like she had been waiting for this moment. The register kept beeping like it was trying to get everyone's attention. And honestly, it already had. People weren't laughing anymore, now they were confused. Phones were still recording, but the energy shifted. Curiosity replaced mockery. Brianna squinted at the screen like maybe she could force it to make sense just by staring harder. What the heck? She mumbled, tapping random buttons that did nothing. Then she turned to Martha and said slowly, with this half-fake customer service smile, "Ma'am, did you do something?" Martha simply shook her head. Before anyone could say another word, the store supervisor, Tina, walked over. She was in her early 40s. Tight bun, sharp eyeliner, green blazer that screamed. "I take myself way too seriously." She always walked like she owned the building, but right now, she looked annoyed, not worried. "What's going on?" she asked, glancing between Brianna and the frozen screen. Brianna shrugged, chewing her gum louder. "I don't know, the system froze when she tried paying with coins." Tina sighed dramatically and muttered under her breath, "Of course. Figures." She walked around the register like she was about to fix everything. With one magical manager tap, except the moment she pressed a button, the screen flashed again, bigger and brighter this time. "Security lock, owner authorization only." A few customers gasped. Someone whispered, "Owner? Why would the system say that?" Another voice answered, "Probably a glitch. The poor woman's coins broke it." A couple near the front laughed again, not loud this time. More like they weren't sure how safe it was to laugh now. Tina crossed her arms and looked at Martha, like accusing her of something criminal. "Ma'am, I don't know what kind of trick you're playing, but you can't interfere with company systems." Martha blinked, slow, calm, like someone used to patience. "I didn't do anything," she said softly. "I just wanted to buy this scarf." The tone of her voice didn't match the chaos happening around her. She sounded steady, gentle, almost too calm for the situation. But Tina wasn't having it. "Well," she snapped, "until this mess is fixed, you need to step aside. You're holding up paying customers." The words hit different this time. Cold, sharp, humiliating. Martha gently picked up her coin pouch and scarf, preparing to move aside without arguing. But before she could step away, a deep voice echoed from behind the counter. "Hold on, nobody moves her anywhere." Everyone turned. A tall man in a navy suit walked forward, strong jawline, polished shoes, expensive watch, the kind of presence that made the entire room straighten up. His name badge read, Jonathan, General Manager. Brianna immediately stood up straighter and dropped her gum into the trash, like it was evidence. Jonathan walked around the counter, eyes fixed on the screen. He read the message, his expression shifting from confusion to shock, to something almost like respect. He looked at Martha, not with annoyance, but with curiosity and caution. "Ma'am," he said gently, "the system is asking for owner verification. That only happens for legacy access." The room went completely still. Brianna whispered to Tina, "What's legacy access?" Tina replied under her breath, "Only people who built the company have that." Someone in line gasped loudly. Another person whispered, "She doesn't look like a millionaire." Martha just held the scarf tighter, like she wasn't sure if she was supposed to explain anything. Jonathan nodded slowly and asked, "Ma'am, do you have identification? Anything related to the company?" Martha hesitated for the first time, not scared, just emotional. Then she opened her old purse and pulled out something small, worn, and faded. A badge, an old employee badge with her picture, younger, smiling, and confident. She handed it to Jonathan. He scanned it. The system beeped loudly and then displayed one final message in bold, glowing letters. "Welcome back, Martha Hale. Founding executive access confirmed." Phones dropped. Smirks disappeared. And the same people who mocked her now stood frozen. Realizing they hadn't been laughing at a poor stranger, they had been laughing at one of the people who built the place they were standing in. For a moment, nobody breathed. The air felt thick, like the entire store suddenly realized they'd been living in the wrong storyline. Jonathan stared at the screen again, then back at Martha, almost like his brain needed a couple extra seconds to catch up. Finally, he cleared his throat and spoke, this time carefully, respectfully. "Ms. Hale, why didn't you tell anyone who you were?" Martha gave a tiny smile, gentle but tired, the kind of smile people wear when they've lived a long life full of highs and lows. "I haven't needed that title for a long time," she said quietly. "It wasn't important anymore." But the employees disagreed. Oh, now it was very important. Brianna froze completely. The gum she had spit out earlier, Yeah. Now she wished she could crawl inside the trash can with it. Her face turned red, then pale. Then somewhere between embarrassed tomato and I'm about to pass out, a customer whispered loudly. Oh my God. We laughed at her. Someone else mumbled. We thought she was just... Jonathan lifted his hand, stopping the chatter. He turned to Brianna, voice stern but controlled. Did you disrespect this woman? Brianna's voice trembled. I didn't know... Jonathan cut her off gently but firmly. Respect shouldn't depend on knowing. Silence dropped over the room again, heavier this time, because now the shame had weight. Tina, the supervisor who acted like she ruled the planet, stepped forward with a forced, nervous chuckle. Well, now that we know who you are, of course we'll take care of you properly. We can upgrade you to VIP checkout, free gift wrapping, anything you'd like. Her tone shifted so fast it was almost dizzying, from rude authority to desperate sweetness. But Martha didn't look impressed. She looked disappointed. She took a slow breath, and for the first time, she spoke with confidence instead of quiet politeness. Why now? She asked softly. Why does kindness only appear after wealth does? Tina swallowed hard. She didn't have an answer. And honestly, everyone knew that was the point. Some customers lowered their heads, uncomfortable now. Not because Martha was powerful, but because they realized they'd treated someone like she didn't matter. Martha placed the scarf on the counter again, gently, almost lovingly, and Jonathan picked it up like it was something sacred. This was one of the first designs we ever sold, Martha whispered. My husband and I, we worked nights, she said, her voice cracking just barely. We believed people deserved quality no matter their income. This store wasn't supposed to be about showing off. It was supposed to be about dignity. A few customers blinked faster, holding back guilt or tears. Jonathan nodded slowly. His tone softened. You built this place with heart, he said. Somewhere along the way, maybe we lost that. Martha didn't say she agreed. She didn't have to. The silence answered for her. Then Jonathan gently handed the scarf back to her. It would be our honor to give this to you, he said. No charge. But Martha shook her head. No, she said softly. This isn't about money. I want to buy it, the same way any customer would. Jonathan hesitated, then nodded in respect. He turned to the register and tapped a few commands, and the system, now unlocked, processed the transaction. Except something changed. The price dropped from $189.75 to 0.01, one single penny. People gasped again. Jonathan smiled slightly. You're still in the system as the original pricing authority, he explained. You accidentally discounted it 40 years ago. For the first time in the entire visit, Martha laughed, a real, warm, genuine laugh, and the whole room softened. She reached into her pouch, picked one small, shiny penny, and placed it gently on the counter. No change needed, she whispered. Jonathan bowed his head slightly, almost like an apology and respect wrapped into one motion, and printed the receipt. And as he handed it to her, he said quietly, Welcome home, Ms. Hale. As Jonathan tore the receipt from the printer, everyone watched, not because of the price, not because she spent a penny, but because the moment felt bigger than shopping. It felt like history. Walking again, Jonathan carefully placed the scarf back into its box, wrapped it in soft white tissue, and tied the ribbon slowly, not as a routine task, but as if he were wrapping a memory. When he handed it to Martha, she held it with both hands, her fingers brushing the bow like she was touching a piece of her past. Thank you, she said softly. But before Jonathan could respond, a timid voice spoke from behind. I'm sorry. Everyone turned. It was the little girl. She stepped forward slowly, still holding the candy she had wanted her mother to buy. Her mother looked embarrassed and started to pull her back, whispering, Sweetheart, no. But Martha smiled gently and gestured for the child to come closer. The girl took a tiny, brave step forward. I heard them laugh at you, she said, her voice small but clear. And I didn't know why. But when you smiled, I thought, you were really nice. A soft warmth spread across the room, the kind that only honesty from a child could create. Martha knelt to eye level. You know, she whispered, when I was your age, someone laughed at me too. and it hurt. But someone else was kind. That kindness stayed with me all my life. The little girl nodded slowly. Then, without hesitation, she held out her candy. You can have mine if you want. A gentle laugh rippled through the room, warm, not mocking. Martha touched the girl's cheek softly. No, sweetheart, she whispered. You keep it. But thank you. That was the most expensive kindness anyone offered today. The girl blushed and hugged her before running back to her mother. And strangely, even the adults who never looked up from their phones or cards earlier now looked humbled, almost softened. But the moment wasn't over. Jonathan turned toward Tina, the supervisor who had mocked and belittled Martha moments earlier. Brianna stood behind her, frozen, guilty, small. Tina, Jonathan said quietly, may I speak to you in my office? Her face drained of confidence instantly. She nodded and disappeared with him into a glass-walled office, everyone watching in silence. Inside, though the room was soundproof, body language didn't lie. Jonathan didn't shout, he talked. Tina didn't defend, she listened. And slowly, her posture shifted from arrogant to ashamed. Meanwhile, Brianna approached Martha, not confidently, not out of habit, but like someone facing a truth they couldn't ignore. She swallowed hard. I was wrong. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. Martha studied her, not angrily. Calm, quiet, kind. What you said hurt, Martha replied softly. But your apology matters. Brianna nodded, eyes glistening. I'll do better, she whispered. Martha placed her hand gently over Brianna's trembling one. Then that is already enough. The store fell silent again, but this time, not with shock or judgment, but with gratitude, respect, humanity. Jonathan and Tina emerged from his office. Tina approached Martha, slower, humbled, and bowed her head. I'm truly sorry, she said. Not because of who you are, but because of who I wasn't in that moment. Martha smiled, not proud, not triumphant, simply peaceful. We all forget who we are sometimes, she said gently. The important part is remembering again. Jonathan took a quiet breath, then addressed the whole store. Starting today, he announced, Hale & Cobra will return to its original mission, treating every customer with dignity. No status, no judgment. People nodded. Some clapped. Some even wiped their eyes. And Martha, the woman who walked in carrying nothing but coins and memories, now stood in the middle of the room as the catalyst for change. She wasn't loud. She wasn't flashy. She didn't demand attention. She simply reminded everyone what respect looks like. And as she prepared to leave, customers moved aside, not out of fear. Not because she was wealthy, but because she deserved it. With the door gently pushed open, a soft breeze blew through, lifting the ribbon on her scarf box. Someone whispered, She changed everything, without raising her voice. And for a moment, every person in that store knew something rare had happened that day. Not a transaction, a transformation. Just say, the autumn wind outside was cool, almost refreshing, as Martha stepped out of the store. The sky was soft gray, the kind that felt like a memory rather than a moment. She held the box close, not because of the scarf, but because of everything it now meant. A few employees quietly followed her out. Even customers paused near the windows just to watch her go. Not because she was rich, not because she was powerful, but because she walked with a grace that money couldn't buy and pride couldn't fake. Then it happened. Just as Martha reached the curb, Jonathan jogged outside, breath slightly heavy like he wasn't willing to let that moment end yet. Mrs. Hale, he said gently. Everyone froze. Brianna gasped. Tina's jaw dropped. Whispers rushed through the doorway like wind. Did he say Hale? As in the Hale family name? As in the founder? Martha turned slowly, her expression soft. Jonathan continued, voice lower now, almost reverent. I just wanted to confirm something before you left. The access code you used wasn't just any privilege code. He swallowed. It was the original authorization code, the one created by Evelyn Hale. A hush fell. People leaned forward without moving. Brianna barely breathed. Jonathan's voice softened even more. And according to our records, Evelyn Hale was the founder of this company. Martha's eyes warmed, with sadness, with love. with memories that belonged to another lifetime. She wasn't just the founder, Martha whispered. She was my mother. Silence didn't just fall, it dropped like a stone in water. Every snicker, every assumption, every judgment from earlier replayed in everyone's mind and burned. Brianna's hand flew to her mouth. Tina stared at the ground, her face red with shame. Customers whispered, stunned. She owns the company. She built the legacy. We laughed at the person who gave us this store. But Martha didn't revel in the shock. She didn't flash power. She didn't act victorious. She simply smiled, gentle and forgiving. My mother built Hale & Co. to remind the world of something simple, she said softly. Luxury isn't about price. It's about respect. Her eyes lifted, calm, steady, kind. That's why these stores used to offer free repairs, free wrapping and tea service. Not because customers could afford it, but because they deserved kindness. Jonathan nodded, his throat tight. We lost that somewhere, he whispered. Martha rested her hand on his arm. You can bring it back. Then she turned to Brianna. The girl looked terrified, eyes wet, lip trembling, waiting for anger or punishment. But Martha didn't raise her voice. She simply said, You will be a wonderful employee someday, not because you know how to sell, but because now you know how it feels when someone doesn't see your worth. A tear slid down Brianna's cheek. She nodded. I'll remember that, forever. With one final breath of cold air, Martha stepped toward the crosswalk. Before she crossed, Jonathan called out again, softer, almost breaking. Mrs. Hale, will you be returning? Martha paused, then smiled, small, meaningful, and unforgettable. Yes, she said gently. But next time, I won't come as someone testing you. She turned her head slightly. I'll come as someone trusting you. The walk signal blinked. She stepped off the curb. The store, the same one that once laughed, now stood silent, humbled and changed. The automatic doors slid closed behind her, and inside the stunned silence, someone finally whispered, She didn't just buy a scarf. She taught us a lesson. A little girl, the same one with the candy, looked up at her mother and said, She wasn't just a customer. She was the owner. Her mother nodded. No, baby. She was something even higher. The little girl blinked. What? Her mother smiled softly. A good person. That day wasn't remembered for the scarf, or the money, or the title on the account. It was remembered because a woman with coins in her hand walked in unnoticed and walked out unforgettable. The end.